Well, welcome to the Trapline this week. It's brought to you by the Trapper Mag. If you're looking for a great magazine that has all the trapping information that you're looking for, definitely go to thetrappermag.com and get that in your mailbox. Comes every month. It's fantastic. This week, we've got a great guest. We've got Eddie Dakin, the Adirondack Master. How are you doing, Eddie?
Morning, Alan. Doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Better than nothing.
It's nice to have you on. I've been looking forward to this. For those out there that don't know, you were Johnny Thorpe's trapping partner for well over a decade. How many years were you his partner as you were up there in the Adirondacks having fun?
16 years trapping with Johnny. Had a good time.
Yeah. Any specific stories that we're going to get into, obviously, but I've heard some of them. I get the opportunity. It's actually one of my most enjoyable times, pretty much for about the last, I think, 4 years, possibly 5 years. I think COVID might have been the first year that I came up and trapped with you. I actually brought Hunter along, and he was doing his schoolwork in the hotel while we were out setting traps. But I look forward to getting up there every year with you. But if you could elaborate on some of the things that you do on a daily basis? I want you to kind of let people know what you do on a daily basis in the Adirondacks as it pertains to there versus somewhere else.
Well, as far as trapping goes, I spend a lot of time doing preseason work, and I have a nuisance control work that I do, and I've been doing that for almost 20 years up here, and I stayed pretty busy with that.
Yeah, I know we talk quite frequently, and you're out there, you're always calling me, I got a beaver job. How many beavers did you catch at that one place we were at there a couple years ago?
Almost 30 beaver there, and they haven't been back since.
Yeah, you took them out of that colony.
Yeah, there was about 30 beavers in that spot where they were crossing back and forth across the road there, and it was a lot of damage they did, but they were so grateful that that we got those beaver out of there.
Yeah, we actually filmed that. That's actually on our YouTube channel where people can go and see that Adirondack adventure with you. I think it's part of 3 parts, and I think all 3 parts have something from that particular colony where it was just beaver after beaver after beaver. That was pretty impressive. The next thing for you as far as trapping, I know you're retired now. Are you concentrating on your ADC stuff?
Pretty much. I bought a couple of nuisance fox here recently that were killing chickens, and I'm always getting called for beaver or skunks or woodchucks. Been a lot of woodchucks this year.
Oh, that's cool. Well, that's the one thing moving forward also. You're probably getting more calls as time goes on from homeowners and people having problems with animals. Have you found, let me ask you this, over the last decade or so, the couple decades you've been doing this, do you feel you get more calls now that people are having more problems with those homeowner type problems, the groundhog, the skunk, the raccoon, those type of things due to less trapping pressure? Do you find that to be something that you're dealing with more, even in a more, mountainous situation like the Adirondacks?
Yes, it's picked up quite a bit. There's definitely a big surge in animal populations. Coyotes, they've really come back strong. And another big thing is we just don't have the trappers we used to have. A lot of the old timers are gone. Not too many new trappers coming up in the ranks. So that made a big difference. I mean, places where I used to go to expect the old timers to already have a trap set there, they're all wide open. They're just not there anymore.
Yeah, they're just not there. And that's, there's a lot of different variables to that. It's tougher to get young kids involved. By the time they're 5, they're thumbing their phone or swiping an iPad or something like that. And it's something that, we as a community, I think we need to work as hard as we can possibly work on that and be very diligent to, get them involved and show them. There's nothing better, to me, there's nothing better than seeing that young kid catch their first critter. That's an experience that's really fun.
Yeah, I really wish I could find somebody who was interested. I've had once in a while somebody will come up and they'll want to trap, and then when the day comes, they say, "Well, my wife wants me to do something else, or I want to do something else." They just don't want to be involved. And the situation Johnny and I had together, that relationship was so good because I could do a lot of the bull work and he could do the fine tuning, and it worked like a well-oiled machine. It was so great. And, when he passed, it was such a big loss. I had to learn to reinvent myself and the way I do things without having Johnny around, because he made it work so much better.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into, I want to get into Johnny, and I want to get into more of your experiences there. And I've told this story, and I've told it to you probably 100 times. I know exactly where I was when I got the phone call. I was in Michigan. I was actually filming on a pile of rocks in the middle of a field behind the F&T warehouse. And we were filming, and my truck was probably about 50 yards away, and my phone rang. And so we caught filming, and we started back. Then the phone rang right away again. And I'm like, we caught filming, and then we started back. And that phone rang a third time immediately, and I looked at the guy I was with, and I said, somebody needs me. And I went to the truck, and I looked at my phone. It said, Ed Dakin, 3 missed calls. And I actually knew, without even having to call you back, that Johnny was probably passed away or was gone at that time. So I remember that like it was yesterday, and that's almost 10 years ago, or maybe 11 years ago.
Yeah, actually, Johnny's been gone since 2015.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I've told that story, and I know how hard that was on you. But on a lighter note, tell us a little bit about some of those experiences, because that's what I really want the people to hear today. I want them to hear some unique, different things and stories that you had with him that really resonate with you and are things that bring you back to that time.
Well, there's a couple of humorous stories. I guess we go our separate ways on the trap line, and whatever we caught, we would always pile it in front of the door, so that when you came in from the outside, you couldn't get the door open because we had so many animals there. That was a little game we played on each other. There's just so many things.
Well, I got a story, and actually you're there to witness it. We were doing a memorial show on Johnny, and I still have people come up to me and be like, I can't believe you found that trap. But we were back there. I said, how many times did I bug you about I got to set that rock wall?
Oh, many times. And Johnny always set that wall religiously.
He always set that wall. And we went in there, and the previous year I was there, I actually made that set in that same location and didn't use a hammer. I made my bed with my hand. And that year we were there doing that memorial story. I hit that trap and was very fortunate to find Johnny's trap still set in the ground. That was to this day, that still is mind numbing to me that went down that way.
Yeah, I can't believe it, because I had set traps there too over the years and never ran into it. It was just like it was meant to be.
Yeah, it was definitely. I actually just had somebody come up to me at the NTA and was like, because I had been doing some things recently for my dad's memorial fund and showing, some of the Johnny items and some of the things that we were raising money for my dad's memorial fund. And actually, I think 2 people asked me and talked about that particular finding that trap. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah,
something that I'm always going to remember. But like, what would a normal day when the season starts and you're going trapping with Johnny, you guys are out on the line. What would a normal day be like? Did you guys ride together? Did you guys go and set your separate, areas and then meet at the end of the day? Tell me how a normal day of your guys' trap line, and kind of walk me through a whole day.
Well, early in the morning on the opening day, Johnny would be up before daylight, and he'd have a light breakfast, and we'd both meet. And some days we would ride together, and other days we would talk about and decide who was going to go where. And he told me to cover this area, and I would cover another area. And he would just set and set and set traps for days on end. Both of us would. And we met up at the end of the day. And Johnny never took a lunch. Anybody who's ever rode with Johnny knows you better bring a lunch, because he isn't stopping. He always had a bag of candy with him, and that's what he lived on when he was trapping, a bag of candy. And we'd set, and his main animal that he went after in the beginning is mink. He'd always get those mink traps out there, and slowly we'd work our way into the fisher season. But end of the day, we'd come back. Johnny would make his chili in the kitchen there, his world-famous chili. And that stuff kept me going for a while. And then, as the fur started rolling in, I did most of the skinning, and Johnny would do the fleshing. And he loved putting up mink. He put up beaver like, man, I never seen anybody put up beaver the way Johnny did. He fleshed beaver like it was nothing. I mean, here's a man who was pushing 80, and he'd be fleshing those blanket beaver like nothing. And loved watching him tack them out. He'd always tack them out round, just like a basketball, without no leg holes. And he'd always sing a song or something while he was fleshing and skinning, and I'd be skinning and just throwing the fur over to him, and we worked at it. He'd be out there till 10, 11 o'clock at night, and he'd make a pot of coffee 11 o'clock at night and wait for that fur to be turned. He had to turn a fox or something.
Yeah,
it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
So he kept me busy. I'll tell you, for a man his age, he kept me very busy.
Yeah, that reminds me, you were talking about, there were times, and I'll tell you this story, you've heard this story before. I'm getting up through the throughway, and I'm about ready to get off to get in there at Warrensburg, and I call him, and I said, "Hey, Johnny, are you hungry?" And he's like, "No." I said, "Well, I was going to get a pizza or whatever," and it's late. It's probably 8:30, 9 o'clock, one of the years that I went up there. And I know there's not any food at his house usually. It's some saltines and that dish of nuts on the table that he just kept filling and putting it on top of what was left over. So the ones on the bottom were probably in there for months at a time. And who knows what mink oil and beaver castor, whatever remnants were on those. But I call him and I say, "Hey, you want me to stop and get a pizza? You want me to, pick up a sub or whatever?" He's like, No. I got clam chowder on the stove, and I'm hungry. It's later in the day, and I just drove 5-6 hours, whatever it is. And I'm like, okay, I'll just eat clam chowder tonight. Well, I drive all the way up there, and there's nothing in, Stony Creek. I mean, at that time of day, there's nothing. Well, there's really nothing there, even in, there's no gas station, there's no anything. And I walk in and, say greetings and how you doing, Johnny? Hey, what's going on? And I'm like, "Hey, is that soup out there? I'm hungry." And I go out there, and there's a pot of clam chowder on the stove, and it's got a full film of blue-green mold on it. It's literally been sitting there for probably 3 or 4 days. Who knows? And I go into him. I said, "Johnny," I said, "there's mold all over." He's like, "Just heat it up. It'll burn it off." And I'm like, "No." So I ended up eating a few saltines that night. And, we probably put half a bottle of Ezra Brooks away that night at the kitchen table. So we wake up the next morning. I'm starving, and he's ready to go check traps and get filming. I said, "Johnny, no. I said, we're going into town. I need to eat. So he took me into that diner in there in Warrensburg. We ate before we went out in the field, but I took a picture of it. I'm sure I have it on the cloud somewhere. But that pot of soup, that clam chowder, I'm not kidding you. It was a half-inch thick of that blue-green mold, and that is exactly who Johnny was. It just didn't matter. He would have eaten that. He would have eaten that up and eat it.
God, I know. That reminds me of a story now that you mentioned that. When we were in the fur shed handling some fur, and he had a coyote that had some green mold on it. And he says, I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that, Eddie. And he scraped that green mold off, and he mixed it in with some of his lure, and he had all that mold on his bare hands, that green mold from that coyote. And then he whipped out a stick of salami and started cutting a piece of salami to eat. He said, Eddie, you want a piece of this salami? I said, no, I don't, and you don't want it either. And I took it away from him. I made him wash his hands because, I mean, whenever we got rid of carcasses, I mean, moldy, nasty carcasses, he just grabbed right into it with his bare hands like nothing. And I really had to march him to the bathroom to wash his hands.
Yeah, that's just too funny. But and there's so many different stories. I remember sitting there with him at the kitchen table, which you were a part of that process even more than me. I was only you were there a few times with me and him, but that was kind of like your nightly ritual, and for 2 decades, like he said. And the stories of how he would tell me when he was a little kid, and E.J. Daly, and Rickard and those guys, he was just a young kid. They gave him a trap. He went and caught a muskrat. He kind of caught the fever through their tutelage. And, being able to, I consider myself very fortunate to be able to experience that and have that opportunity to not only spend that time with them, but to film those videos and all those different things. But hearing those stories definitely was something that I hold very dear, and I'm sure you have tons more than I have, and things of that nature.
Yeah. He told me all the Ricketts stories, and we actually went up to his early trap lines where he trapped, and went over Pete Rickard's old lines where Pete Rickard and Art Crane trapped together. And Johnny took me on location and showed me where he trapped back there in the 50s and the 60s. And he got that information from Pete Rickard. And it was really interesting. And I still can go back to those places and see those sets made up the way Johnny left them.
Yeah.
Even the ones around here, they're still made up the way he set them up.
Well, that's another thing. I mean, how many times have we been out there just in the last 3 or 4 years, and you'll look across the way and, you'll be like, hey, look, there's one of Johnny's base stations. We'll see those old flip-top soda pop cans or a beer can, and that's one of his old bait stations that he would, put his smelt or whatever he would put in them and then hang them. He was big on that.
Yeah, his spring holes. I know where they all are, and there's a couple I keep forgetting to go to because I'm almost positive there's a trap hanging in a tree there. I just keep forgetting to go there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, literally in the last couple of years, we've probably seen at least 4 or 5 of those base stations hanging.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I always, just look at them. I don't alter them because, it's kind of like a shrine or the memory of Johnny there.
Yeah.
Whenever I go down the road, I drive down the road with my wife, Jerry, and I'll say, oh, this is where Johnny and I used to trap this or that, or an incident that had happened there. So there's always, fond memories of being here with Johnny trapping.
Well, I'll say with you, one of my most enjoyable times trapping with you in the Adirondacks is actually the rides in between where we have our sets, because it's literally every mile, every 2 miles, you're like, well, that's where we had Johnny loved that area right there. He had a mink set there, or there's a spring hole in there. And you're actually, I don't know if we're going to get into it because you probably talked for 5 hours on this, but you're really big into history, and you're really
Oh
big
yeah.
into the history of the Adirondacks. You're actually big into the French and Indian War. You're into a lot of that history, and you're almost like a tour guide for me when I come up there because you're giving all of that history. Actually, one of the most enjoyable times is riding with you in that car.
Oh, thanks, Alan. Yeah, that was a love Johnny and I both had. We both loved history, I think, and sometimes it was more than trapping. Johnny loved the history of the Adirondacks and the French and Indian War and artifact hunting, and that was something we did in the off season. We'd do artifact hunting or follow up some treasure story, and sometimes they panned out, and other times they didn't. But he really loved history. I love history, you know.
Yeah, it really is enjoyable, and I wanted to tell you that I just love the just the knowledge that you're willing to give, and you know pretty much every nook and cranny of those mountains in that whole range there, whether it's Warrensburg or Stony Creek or all the way down to Lake George. I mean, it doesn't matter where we go. You're pointing and dictating on on different things.
I love it. I love it all. The
It's awesome.
trapping, the history. I love it all.
With that, with trapping where it's at right now, it's obviously we could sit here and we can all bloviate and pontificate or whatever we want to do on the market and this and that and the other thing. But it's we were talking there a little bit ago at the beginning about having a hard time to get people involved and get people into the tradition of trapping. It's hard when trapping has always been associated, and this is my view, and I think it's your view too, and I want you, to elaborate on this with your views. It's hard to get people involved when a lot of times trapping has been associated with fur prices, and there is a value beyond just fur prices. There is the tradition of it. There's the memories. There's the one-on-one with nature. There's a lot of different variables. What do you see as something that can be done to enhance trapping moving forward that doesn't necessarily have to do with the value of the pelt itself?
Well, personally, I think it's a lifestyle, like we talked about, and it's a great way to connect with nature and feel good about it. Trapping for the historical value of it, and just make a little money on the side is just a perk. But all these TV programs you see, like Mountain Man and Alone in the Wilderness, all these things help bring attention to people about the valuable resources that are all around us, and that all that helps. But I think getting people more involved with nature and knowing our history, the history of the country, and knowing how this nation was built up on the fur trade, the pros and cons to that, because that was the basis of what our country was founded on. And that gets into the historical part of it, I guess. But I just love the lifestyle. Making the money to me is secondary. Maybe even I don't even consider it at all. I just love what I'm doing. And I personally noticed that you see a lot more women and young girls getting involved in trapping. And that's great. I love that. I mean, the girls, it seems, are always want to work harder than the men to outshine them. And a lot of times they do. My own daughter was more involved in trapping than my son was. So that's great to see. And I encourage it at every level. And I love it when you go to a trappers convention and you see a young girl and her dad together trapping. But I think if we look at the history of trapping and the benefits that it brings in today's climate, with the nuisance control, the coyotes in the neighborhoods, there's pros and cons, and I can only see it getting better. And a lot of people, of course, are tanning furs and selling it that way, and that's great.
Well, that's just using that as an example, I haven't probably sold, well, I haven't sold a fur on the market in well over a decade. Everything
Right.
that I've caught gets tanned. One of the things that I like to do, and anybody watching this, I highly recommend it because it's something that's well received and respected. Like if I go to Illinois and I trap out there with Jenny, on the farm, or I go to Kansas and I trap the hunting facility, or I go to Illinois and trap a different place, or, farm in Pennsylvania, I will get those animals tanned, and then I will give the farmer or the homeowner or the landowner one of those pelts and say, hey, this is a raccoon from your own property. And that's well received. They love it. It's something that, is good stewardship for you as a trapper to give that back, and it, will secure hopefully the farm for the next year. But it's a great conversation piece, and anybody that comes in that house or any friend that stops by, hey, what's that? Well, that's a raccoon from my land, and they'll touch it, they'll feel it, and it kind of opens up those conversations with that. So that's a really good point.
Yeah. Yeah. I recently did that with a place where I trapped nuisance beaver, and I gave the family one of the tan beavers, and the grandson just loved that. And in fact, they understand now how important it is to keep the beaver populations in check with the environment.
Yeah. Yeah. This is probably not a conversation or a question I can ask most people that I'm even going to have on this podcast on the trap line in most all instances. You trapped in Germany.
Yes, I did.
And
I have a German trapper.
you have a German trapper's license. You've showed me it. It's fantastic. Give us a little bit about like how you got the opportunity to trap in Germany and the things that you trapped in Germany and what that was like versus here in the United States.
Well, I was stationed in Germany, and generally, when I was in the Army, I was stationed in Germany, and I used to make my vacation to come back to the States and trap, but that meant there was still a lot of time left to trap in Germany, and the way they do it there is really different. But and you never needed a trapping license over there before. A hunting license was all you needed. But the 1 year that I was hunting over there, they said, now you got to have a trapper's license. So I took the course, which was nothing more than sitting and watching a bunch of videos and talking about it. And I had a lot of pictures from trapping back in the States, and the folks were excited about that. So when I made one of my trips back home, I brought some traps with me, and I would catch some red fox over there, badgers. The red fox over there are a lot bigger than the foxes here. They're almost the size of a coyote. And usually when they sell furs over there, they want them already tanned. So it's up to the trapper to tan them. They have a different style of trapping methods. They'll put traps underground in a tunnel for the fox to go through and get caught. It's a big deal, but they have a bad beaver problem right now in Germany and all of Europe. And I was contacted by some German officials at one time. They wanted me to come over there and get a contract to trap the beaver on the farms over there. But by this time, I was already established back in the United States, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to go back there and deal with it because that would have been an all-day job, 24/7, and the beaver really raised in hell there. But I enjoyed it. I have my trapper certification on the wall here.
I don't know. That's awesome.
Yeah, they were amazed, by that. And I told them about Johnny, and I showed them the old pictures of Pete Rickard when he trapped in Germany during the war. So it was a great experience. And in German, they call it Fallensteller, which, I can't translate it any better than that, but it means a trapper, Fallensteller.
That's pretty good. Well, that's one of the things getting the opportunity to throw a little bit of your fluent German in there, which is
yes, I'm fluent in German.
Yeah, that's really cool. I wish I had the ability to have another language, but I didn't. I took 5 years of French, and I can well say that I don't know much. I didn't retain much of it.
They also have a problem with wolves in Germany right now, too.
Right.
Oh, they got a problem with wolves in Germany. They're complaining about them a lot. Come from Poland and Eastern Germany. Badgers have always been seen as a nuisance animal over there, and there's a lot of badgers there.
Well, I think it's pretty awesome. You know, you have state trappers here in the United States. You, Eddie Dakin, are almost like a continental or country
International.
trapper. The international country trapper. You just different. You don't bounce from state to state. You bounce from country to country.
It's a hell of a long line. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long line. That's pretty cool. I just find that fascinating that you were able to, do that. And, you've showed me, your license on the wall. It's just really interesting. And, it's something I don't, think about a lot. And I don't even think you do. It's just something that I wanted the viewer to recognize that, you've been doing this a long time.
Yes, I've trapped since I was 7 years old, 1969. My father, I had a number 2 double long spring. To me, that was like a bear trap at the time. And my father would push down the springs, and I'd walk down to the woods and set it. And I started catching possums and muskrats. I loved catching muskrats before school, like so many other kids at that time. I worked on a dairy farm when I was a kid, and there was piles of old Blake and Lamb traps in that barn there. And the farmer, he saw my love for trapping, and I still got a couple of those. And he gave me all of those traps. He said, long as you promise to use them properly and be a good trapper, and I did. And I still got a couple of those traps today. But yeah, during the fur boom, the early fur boom there in the 70s, my wife Jerry and I knew her then. We were just dating, and she used to take me around, and because she's a little bit older than me, has a Mustang, and we throw our coons and stuff in the back of that Mustang.
I remember the story about how you took her on a date and you had to stop and check a culvert, and you looked down and there's a bobcat staring at you.
Yeah, that was another one. Yeah. And my mother used to take me to the fur buyer every year because my father didn't drive, but my mother did. And she would also drive me around and places, because I would walk far away and set the traps, and then when I would come to check on them, they would drive me there to pick them up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Getting back to Johnny, I mean, he did everything in his shed. The shed was awesome. He had all the essential oils on the, wall, and that old bookshelf that he just basically had nothing but different essential oils and things of that nature. And, if you'd have told me in 2005 when I first went up, or 2004 when I first went up to filming, that I would actually have the opportunity to own his lure line, I would have been, there's no way. And, I actually had the opportunity, and actually you were a big part of, that process. Actually you had called me and said, hey, do you have an interest in, Johnny's lure line? And I said, yeah, I probably would. And, being able to carry that torch, and as you're well aware, you were a big part of that process. I would send you them as I was creating them, the authenticity, making sure that, they are exactly what he put on the market and then some. But, being part of that process, I definitely wanted to thank you for helping, in that and getting those out on the market.
Oh, I'm so grateful that you took the business over. I mean, those lures are exactly the way Johnny made them, and they are so good. And I know Johnny would be proud knowing that you're making those lures. They're great.
Yeah, the bad medicine is it was his
Oh, you
best.
got it down packed.
Yeah, well,
Bad medicine, you got down.
that was his best-selling lure, and that's
Yeah.
obviously the best-selling one out of the ones that we're creating. And we did just finish up the Mink Eliminator and the Colorado Cat Paste, and offered them on uh, that. But um, I got to see it when I was there all those years. I mean, we filmed making your own deer lure, but how was that experience for you and being in there and kind of learning what he was showed by Pete Rickard and the older guys in that, 50s and 60s when he was growing up? Did you recognize you were part of history when you were there? Or is it something that's hit you like it's hit me kind of after the fact?
Well, at the time, no, I was just so absorbed by everything Johnny was doing. It was like I thought to myself, "You got to be a scientist to make this stuff." All his lures and concoctions. But um, he got a lot of information from those old timers and came up with a lot of his own stuff by trial and error. He used to, make a lure and he'd put it on a stick and throw it on the tin roof of his fox shed
Uh-huh.
and come back, a month later and it's still strong. Or he had a couple of local places where he would put lure tests in and the foxes, coyotes would dig the hell out of it, boy. But I was just trying to absorb it all, but it takes a while to understand the uses of that. But Johnny would tell me the uses of it and how to use it and the importance of it. And it was amazing. I'm grateful that I had that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, he is definitely missed. And, you know, as I said before, I really appreciate your friendship. I appreciate you having me up to continue to live that and through the memories and the new memories that are created with you. It's just a great time when I get my opportunity to come up there.
Oh, I wish you lived up here closer. We could be trapping partners.
Exactly. I'll do the flesh and you can do the skin, and I'd rather flesh than skin
Oh,
every day of the week.
okay, that's fine with me.
We'll
Yeah.
keep the same thing you had with Johnny in place.
Oh,
You skin, I
yeah.
flesh.
That was great. Yeah, I really miss those days. I mean, it was the perfect situation. And I find myself now at the age when I first met Johnny, and boy, if I could find somebody, like myself, who would want to learn that. And but it's so hard, at least in this area. It's just nobody interested in it.
Yeah.
But we had the perfect relationship. Johnny loved it, and we I was always driven to trap more because of Johnny's excitement. I mean, he made you want to become a better trapper.
Yeah. Yeah.
He made you want to live that lifestyle.
That's true. That's what I
Yeah,
got from it. I got like
yeah,
I wanna do this. I wanna be part of
yeah.
this. Even though
That's
we
what Johnny
were,
did.
even though we were to a certain extent, we had it in our blood.
Yeah, yeah,
The being around him and just seeing that lifestyle just accentuated that and took it to the next level or even levels beyond that.
yeah, yep. And all the stories, that, unfortunately, I should have made some notes. I mean, I got so many. I remember them as we go along, and then they pop up. I should have made notes about them, but well, anyway.
Yeah, well, hindsight's always 2020, my friend.
Yeah, yeah. But
Before we get going here, we're going to institute the Fast Five again, and I'm going to ask you 5 questions. No elaboration. These are one-word
okay.
answers.
All righty.
One-word answers. You're on the hot seat. I don't have a time clock. We're not timing you, but one-word answers. If you could only trap and make one set, what's your go-to set?
Turtle set.
Third hole. This is more of a fun one. What is your reaction or what comes to your brain when you snap your fingers in a trap?
Boy, that was stupid.
You and me both. What's your favorite animal to trap?
I gotta say Fisher and Martin.
Fisher Martin. What's your go-to bait? Like the one thing that at the end of the day, if you could only choose one bait, I'm not talking about a commercial bait. I'm talking about whatever that is. And I think I know the answer to this. I should write it down and then hold it up. But what's your go-to bait?
Beaver.
Beaver. I knew it was coming. And lastly, what do you feel is the hardest animal that you get to chase out there in the field?
It's the hardest animal. Man, that's a tough one, Alan, because it's
One
all
word.
about avail.
One animal.
The one animal it's about availability, and I would have to say a red fox.
Red fox. That's a good answer because they are wily.
Because
The coyote gets the wily moniker, but the red fox is wily too.
coyotes, they fall for it every time, but red fox, they're wily.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Eddie, I can't thank you enough for your friendship. I can't thank you enough for being part of this today. It's my honor to have you on the trap line here. I look forward to getting up there again. And if you ever need anything, reach out. But you and the missus, I hope, have a great vacation up in New Hampshire.
Well, thank you, Alan, and I can't wait till you come back up this fall. I wish you lived closer, and I always enjoy having you up here, and I appreciate so much the lure line you took over from Johnny. You're making them great, and Johnny would be so proud.
I appreciate that, buddy. That's the trap line this week. We'll be back next week or a couple weeks from now. We'll have another episode for you. We appreciate you stopping by. Make sure you support us by going to thetrappermag.com. Get yourself a subscription to The Trapper, and we'll hopefully see you out on the line.